G'day guys, Mike with the Outer Circle, and in this episode of Getting Started in the Horus Heresy, we are looking at the Iron Hands. So, as with other videos, we're going to assume you have this box set. You're going to have 40 Space Marines in power armor, you're going to have 10 Legion Cataphracti, 2 Legion Praetors, 1 Contemptor Dreadnought, and 1 sick-ass Spartan. So, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to get some rules. Like all Loyalists, they can be found in the Liber Astartes, the Loyalist Legion's army book. Nice and simple. Now, transfers. The Iron Hands have a pretty good transfer sheet, but it is let down in one critical area. It does not have a huge number of clan markings of the same clan. Not a huge problem, but it does mean for people who like to play their force as a single united clan, you're going to struggle here because you've only got about enough to do maybe 20 Marines of the same clan, and that's if you use knee icons and if you use shoulder icons. If you only want to use one of those things, well, it's 10. You can get that number up to, say, 15, but 15 is a bit of an unusual number. Yeah, it's not great in the end. So, other than that, it's a really, really nice decal sheet, but one thing that the old Iron Hands sheet back in the Badab War sort of era did was it gave you a absolute crap load of clan markings. This one doesn't do that. Instead, it has all those really nice sort of Iron Hands symbols down the bottom, and hey, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, neither is superior. They've both got their quirks, but it's a really nice decal sheet. So, first thing I'm going to suggest is actually the Iron Hands Primaris upgrades. I know, shocking choice, but hear me out here. About half of this set is really good too. You can use the little cogs, the cog purity seals as Oaths of Moment. Nice little stylistic choice there, being Iron Hands, because they got the little cog. Makes them stand out. Of course, the arm, which has the bionics, does not look like a Primaris arm, so very easy to use it on the Mark 6 squad sergeants or even just random members in the squads. The little gauges and thermometers, we'll say, that you can see floating around everywhere, those little pieces, just will look great hanging from the belts of various individuals. And of course, the bear heads, they would work pretty well anywhere in this force, which is nice to see, because yes, the Primaris heads are slightly larger than Horus Heresy era helmets and heads are, but because these ones have bionics on them, it changes the sort of perception of the head, so it will work quite well. Just trust me on that one. So, moving on from there, Ironfather Firos, or Firos, or however you pronounce it, is a bit of an interesting choice. Now, I would suggest, when you look at the basic box here, if you look at the Sons of Horus painted Praetor, you could potentially take away both of his hands and replace it with the Ironfather's hands here. Because the distance, just off the old Mark 1 eyeball, looks about the same from one hand to the other. In which case, you might be able to just straight up transfer this weapon, which, if I look at the sheet, does come with the 2 hands already on it. You'll be able to transfer it straight onto this guy, which is going to make him feel a lot more like an Iron Hand. But even if you didn't, what you could do is cut the axe head off and replace the axe head on this guy with that cog axe head, and replace the shaft below his left hand, or the lower hand, with the back end of this shaft, to again make it feel that bit more mechanicum. His belt as well has those segmented overlapping armor plates hanging off it, which is part number 9, I believe, on this sprue. Could be part number 6, actually, if I read them all from the same side would help. That there would work really well on this guy, as potentially hanging over the top of that little tabard or cloak, but you don't need to use the part. It's just a nice little option to have. Now, where it gets interesting is the Servo Harnesses, or the Servo Arms. Now, I'm not really a huge fan of the bolt gun that he has slung, but I really like the 2 servo arms on the right, both the cable machine from the arcade and the lower little pinchy boy. So if you cut those 2 off at the nacelle, or the joint where they meet the body, or meet the backpack, you could then go over to these guys here, and then cut away one of the nacelles on their backpack, replacing it with one of this backpack. And that there is going to give you a servo harness very easily onto your guys. And because you have a weird looking trophy rack, especially on this guy, I would suggest cutting away the trophy rack and simply replacing it with the white sensor pod off the back of this backpack here. And of course this head would look absolutely fantastic placed onto this model here. So options, I see a lot of usable parts in this kit, but it's not going to be everyone's taste being Primaris. So with that in mind, we're going to jump on over to Forge World. Obviously, Iron Hands helmets, fantastic upgrade. It's going to look, I suggest, possibly through the entire army. I know that's a bit of a big call, but the Beakies are not a helmet that I think looks very good on Iron Hands. And these helmets do look really good, especially with all the bionics and such going on. And if you mix them in a bit with some of these other upgrades, like the bear heads here, that could work very nicely across the force. This miniature, of course, the Iron Father, Cataphractii armor, already comes as an Iron Hand. No brainer, very easy to put into the force. Cheap investment in order to have a character that can ride along with the Terminators. And last but not least, Medusan Immortals. And not as Medusan Immortals. Thanks to the awesome parts in this kit, you could potentially give them shields to your characters. And I think this character in particular would really benefit from having the shield. The sword is fine, and the Volkite is fine. But the shield hanging there, one of the Medusan Immortal shields, would look very nice. And with the Medusan Immortals, their bodies and their legs, torso and head is one piece on all of them, except for the squad leader or sergeant who has a bear head. In his example, it's a really interesting heavy bionic head, which I think would look fantastic on this Praetor in particular. So combine those parts. Now the leftover bodies, they're going to be a little bit short in comparison to the other models in your force. But again, tiny little sliver of plastic card underneath the feet, just to give them a little bit of extra height. And then you could also add a little bit of extra height with the base itself, depending what your basing scheme is. And these will make fantastic consoles in the force, because they've got a good mix of bionics, regular parts. The shoulder pads on them are awesome. They really are. And of course the shields and such, boarding shields or combat shields, are very heavily favoured on consoles in games of Horus Heresy, whether you're playing Zone Mortalis, whether you're trying to make breacher squads or represent siege breakers, all sorts of units. And these nice stylized Iron Hands designs look just chef's kiss. So up to you guys what you do with it, but that's my suggestions for the Iron Hands. Now, like several of the other legions, they will really, really benefit from a part 2 video. In this case, we're going to go heavy on the vehicles in the part 2, but that's for another day. Wouldn't want to give you that right now. Back with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all on the next one.